What is up, Fight fans? I am Jason Burgos from MixedMartialArts.com, and I am joined by a fast-rising prospect who has the opportunity of a lifetime on September 14th. On that night, she will step into the octagon looking to vie for a UFC contract on Dana White's Contender Series, and that woman I speak of is a CFFC veteran and Canada's own Jasmine Jasudavicius. Jasmine, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you for having me.
So I love talking to fighters on the come up because I get to ask them about their journey as they're trying to get to the UFC, because everyone knows of Brandon Moreno, Jan Blachowicz' story at this point. You got into the game slightly less than 4 years ago at 28, which is a little bit later than most fighters often start in a career like this. What life journey did you take that made you change direction and say, yeah, I want to try and punch people in the face for a living in MMA?
So I got the opportunity to try out some MMA when I was out in PEI with. Sorry, can you still see me?
Yep, I see you.
Yeah. Okay. My phone just went black for a second. But went out to PEI. There's a guy, Jason Burgos. He was training for a fight in the UFC, and so I'm saw what it's all about. I'm like, oh, this is sick. Kind of thing. Never did anything before. And then I'm like, oh, I want to spar. They were doing sparring, and then they're like, yeah, you're not just going right into sparring. So then he did some moving around, and then I had so much fun. I was trying my hardest, but he was just obviously playing with me. And I just started doing MMA, and I never looked back since.
And because it takes a unique kind of person to do a job like this. It's not for everybody. Were you a person that was into kind of maybe action sports or very physical things? Like that's a big step from it's almost like a 0 to 100 almost feels like. Were you into that kind of stuff before you got into this?
Yeah, yes and no, I guess. I was always an athlete, and I was always scrappy, and I was my personality type is just kind of go with and let me bang, bro, kind of mentality. And then so it's more like MMA found me as opposed to me finding MMA.
As you make your way on this new life, you started off 4-0, but then you moved down to compete for the CFFC strawweight title. You barely lose in a close split decision. What was the mind frame after that? Was it shit, I lost this chance at getting a title that I really wanted? Or was it for you, was it kind of a more picture frustration that you were thinking, damn, this loss kind of stopped my momentum and may set me back maybe a year or so because the goal is a big organization?
Yeah, I thought I won that fight, but the judges saw it otherwise. But whatever, I still learned some very valuable lessons from that fight, and it just the loss caused me to mature within the sport. It kind of showed me, oh, this definitely is what I want to do. I when you're winning, it's all fun,
Yeah.
I would stay in it forever, Khabib. Holy, I don't know how he retired, because winning feels so good. But but after a loss, then it's you gotta reach the deepest of the deep to be able to feel the highs of the high. And so it really matured me, because that was a tough loss. It cut deep.
We are in a different time in this industry where fighters can get fast tracked to the UFC, to Bellator, PFL through certain avenues like the Contender Series, like LFA, which is sending a bunch of people to major organizations. In the last couple of years, did you kind of maybe develop a game plan? Okay, I need to win this many fights, or I need to win in this kind of way, and boom, I get to LFA, then on to the big show? Or since the Contender Series has become this really big deal in the sport, the goal for you and even other fighters on the way up that you work with, was it always okay, I gotta do this to get to the Contender Series? Was the goal always Contender Series or not?
Not really. The goal has always been the UFC, and it was I was gonna take whatever opportunities presented themselves along the way. I would never really look past my next fight. So whatever, say I finish a fight then it's like, okay, just back to training and then wait for the next fight opportunity to come, and just jumping on those opportunities when they present themselves. And then obviously, like, the more opportunities you jump on, the more hype that gets behind you. And then something like this happens where I have the availability to fight on the Contender Series fight, and it's like, I'm not going to waste this opportunity that I have.
Is there any like surprise you got this opportunity just in 6 fights? That's super fast for such a big opportunity. You know, on some level, do you feel like, man, I'm actually ahead of a schedule in what I thought, or do you feel like you know, through those 6 fights, through the independent, I mean the amateurs, that you know this was the right time, you are ready for this kind of opportunity now?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it was kind of a short path, but I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time. So,
Yep.
so I'm gonna like, I didn't really have any like specific kind of dates or plans or anything like that. It was just, yeah, go for it. And let's go as far as we can.
Going back to like you know, you first getting into the sport, how closely did you follow the sport at all, or at other combat sports? Like, were you a fan even you know, before you got into it, or did you kind of become a fan once you started getting into it? And who are, you know, the fighters that have had an influence on you, maybe just watching as a fan, or maybe people you've trained with in these last 2 years that have had a lot of influence on you?
Yeah, so initially, like, I obviously watched UFC, like, back with Tito Ortiz and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started working more, and I was working at a restaurant, and it's like a fine dining restaurant. So I was working every Friday, Saturday nights. So there was a time period that I didn't really watch the fights too much. But then once I started training, obviously I started watching again and really diving in. But I feel like every time I watch people or train with people, then I learn from them, no matter what. Like,
Right.
it's like, oh, this is something that I like in their style. This is something that I don't like in their style. This is what they did that worked against something that I do well, or something like they expose something that I don't do so well. So I've kind of taken a little bit from everyone. But just this past camp, I've been training with the girls over at Syndicate, and so it's
Okay.
like, I worked a ton with Gian Kim and like Emily Whitmire, because we all are fighting within like a couple weeks of each other. Like, Gian just fought, and then I fight, and then Em will be fighting after. So it kind of worked out that our camps kind of like fell into each other, and so it was. I learned a lot from them, and a girl named Valerie. She doesn't have a fight, but she's always in the gym. She's always training, and so I've had like such great like learning opportunities while I've been here.
A lot of fighters, and that's what kind of makes MMA such a unique, different sport than the other big sports, is a lot of fighters, even on their first UFC fights, they have other jobs. Like, they have to do and have some other sort of income to pay the bills, because the UFC doesn't do that necessarily right away, especially through the Contender Series. It's always tougher. Do you have like a side job or a regular job, or are you like trying to manage a day job along with your training?
I don't have, other than training, that this is all I'm doing now. Prior to this, I was working at a youth homeless shelter, and that was like super rewarding. I love that. I can't, like, when I'm done fighting, I'm gonna go back into like that type of industry, or get into that somehow, because I feel like that's a really rewarding thing. But yeah, I I will help out like at the gym with some classes and stuff, and I just don't really spend much. So that I like, when I'm eating, I like eat everything, like you get the chicken with the bones. I'm boiling the bones and making some broth,
All right. Yeah.
resourceful.
Yeah, no, I like that. Now, a complaint recently, I guess, in terms of the Contender Series, is that instead of years past, when Dana only gave out contracts when people got big finishes and all these kinds of things, people are complaining for some reason now that this season he's just handing out contracts like breath mints. He's just giving them away because of that. Is there like, you know, a little bit of relief as you prepare for this fight? You know, not having to think maybe, oh, I got to get finishes and that's the only way I can get a contract, and maybe fighting in that way, you know, get you out of your style, fighting out of character, a reckless to win, or maybe fighting a little reckless is right down your alley, so, you know, you're feeling really good heading into this contract now.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I'm always looking for the finish. So this plays right into it. I don't like that he's giving out contracts for not getting finishes a little bit.
All right.
I do like it, you know, just in case. But I'm looking to finish. I want to put on a show for Dana. Daddy Dana.
Now you are not, like I mentioned before, as young as maybe, you know, you got into it later, so you're not as young as maybe some of the other fighters that might be on the show who maybe early 20s, mid 20s. You know, you have that added maturity of life. You just lived life, been in different situations, maybe more of an appreciation of the situation you're in. Do you feel like that helps a little bit? Because this is a high pressure situation. Or will you have to kind of battle that inner fan and that inner fear as Dana White is staring at you from outside the cage and you get into the octagon? Like, what do you feel? Are you feeling like, you know, I'm mentally ready more so than other kids? Or are you like, man, this is going to be tough that night?
No, I feel good. I think it's, you know, I've had tons of life experiences where I've had whatever uncomfortable situation that I've had to get through, or whatever it may be. You know, that's why they say respect your elders. Like, they know more than you. I know more now than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I feel like that definitely gives me the advantage going into it, because I've been in tough spots. You know, I'm 32 years old. I definitely had my fair share of hard times and sticky situations, especially because, you know, if I got into fighting, I had to be a little bit wily before, you know.
Well, since you bring it up, I mean, tell me, you know, give me an instance of where life kind of was your first punches in the face that you had to kind of battle back from. I mean, if you don't want to get too personal, completely understand, but what's some interest of some tough times you feel that do give you that inner maturity that prepares you for this?
So when I was like 21 years old, maybe 22, but I like traveled through Europe on my own, just completely on my own, just alone as a girl, before I even got into martial arts too. So and for some reason my PIN number for my bank account was 5 digits, and so like a bunch of countries I would go to, I couldn't even use my card, and it was nuts. I had to do some scheming and slying and kind of, you know, make my way through Europe. But it was sick. It was like such a life-changing opportunity that I recommend everyone travel and do that though.
Now, give me your scouting report on Julia Palastri. She is a Shooto veteran, which is a strong Brazilian regional promotion, just like CFFC is in the U.S. You know, is she far and away the stiffest test in your career so far? And why is she, or maybe why is she not?
No, I would say she would have to be my toughest opponent to date. She wouldn't be given the opportunity if it wasn't like valuable for her. If they didn't think that she was good enough, then the UFC is a reputable organization. They're not just bringing in schlubs, you know. So obviously she's gonna be a tough opponent, but I think that I'm gonna get my hand raised at the end of the night.
I've always been told early in a fighter's career that watching video isn't something a lot of fighters do early on. But have you watched any video you can find on her, or pretty much the crux of your training has been training partners that are similar in style, and your coaches have identified certain things you need to prepare for and certain things you need to do to beat her?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of video out on her, but honestly, everyone's a different fighter from one fight to the next, unless they fought maybe 2 months later. But we've had tons of time in between my last fight and between her last fight. It's like, who knows what we're gonna come out with. So I focus on like what I can control, and what I can control is myself. So I just focus on myself and strengthening my strengths and mitigating my weaknesses.
So at the end of this fight on the Contender Series, what is the ring announcer saying when he's reading the results of this fight?
He's gonna. Well, I don't know if I'm in the red corner or blue, but he's gonna be holding up my hand. It's got to be a finish. It's got
right.
for Dana. Come on, it's got to be a finish.